Yeah.
All right, welcome to the Apple Valley Sound Council regular meeting for Thursday, February 17th, 2022. We will do our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have roll call.
Kevin Sears present. Kenny McGinnis present.
Mason Walters present. Robin Whitmore present.
Barrett Nielsen present.
Thank you. Do we have any conflicts of interest?
Nay. No.
No? No. All right. We're going to start with our consent, and welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We will start with our consent agenda, and let's start with approval of the minutes for our January 27th town council meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look these over? I know it's a lot. It's 15 pages. It's a long reading. No, I do that. So on page 5 of 15, Jenna, I would like to add a statement that I made about the general plan provided for 1 to 5 acres. However, the applicant was requesting 1 acre, which is considered the highest and best use. And we are not required to grant the highest and best use. Even though it is 1 to 5, we are not required to grant the highest and best use. Did anybody else come across anything?
I think there was a little bit. I think at the very end, there was something that I didn't listen to it.
All right, so Jenna has requested that we table approving these minutes because she did feel like because it was so long that there was some more attention to the end that she wanted to give. And I think what you're saying is you noticed some things
Just at the very end.
And
Felt like it wasn't quite.
so we're going to honor her request. Do we have a motion to table approving the minutes from the January 27th meeting?
I make a motion that we table the minutes for January 27, 2022. I second that.
Vote.
Aye.
Aye. That's 5 ayes and 0 nays. Number 2, financials for January 22nd. Robin Whitmore, our treasurer.
Okay, so you guys know that we have the consent calendar in the front office that you can look at. It's just on the shelf there. You can look at our bills and our incomings and outgoings. The reconciliations are now up to date. And the audit for fiscal year 21 is in progress. We are 58.33% of the way through the fiscal year. We have received 62.52% of our revenues for both our expected revenue. We have spent 51.14% of our expected expenditures. And that is the state of our financial situation.
Any comments or questions from council
Can you
members?
repeat that one more time?
Sure. So we're 58, the percentage?
Yeah, just the last few there.
Oh, the last two? Okay.
Yeah. What
So we're
I'll put
58%.
one.
Okay. After 58.33% of the year, of the fiscal year, we have received 62% of our expected revenue, and we have spent 51% of our expected expenditures.
All right. Any other questions or comments about any of our billing for for January in particular?
No, I went through all that. The ones I had concerned, I made copies and pulled out, so I'll be reviewing those personally. Has to do with my area of coverage.
Okay. All right, so number 3, discussion lot split parcel AB-1351-A-1. The applicant is Rocky Mountain Power. So after 6 years of work on Rocky Mountain Power's part, they have found a parcel where they anticipate they can put up a more substantial substation. What they have said is that based on our current infrastructure, utility infrastructure, we are pretty much maxed out in terms of what we can support utility electric wise. And so this substation is critical for Apple Valley for any future growth that we have. And it's going to take 12 to 18 months to complete. They are finalizing the purchase at the end of this month. And it is along Highway 59, so it fronts Highway 59. And it's the triangle parcel up by Main Street. So where you turn left on Main Street, that little triangle parcel right there, it's in the farthest corner. So they have no problems with easements. That's all worked out. Everything looks good. We've talked to the attorney, our attorney, and we've gone through our ordinance completely, and we've met all of the requirements of our ordinance to be able to approve this lot split for them. And so we just needed to have it on the agenda tonight. So do you have any questions about that?
Well, is it the parcel between 59 and Main Street?
Yes.
Okay.
It's where the old road was. That little section right there, and that house is the bigger portion.
Yeah. the bigger.
More to the left.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that will be a wonderful thing for us.
Because I looked up that parcel and it actually had 3 separate parcels that were on that.
Yeah, they have a triangle parcel.
Yeah, okay.
When do they plan on starting on it?
They did not give us a date to start on it. They're closing on the property, the sale at the end of this month.
Okay.
And 12 to 18 months is what they said.
Okay, and I'm assuming moving forward, that's to help the developer. As they come in.
Well, it will help everyone. It will not only help for future growth, but it will also help providing more consistency
Oh, well,
in
yeah.
our service, as we all know.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, that's been bad.
historically
Long
been an
overdue.
issue. Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. Well, I had nothing to do with it. Like I said, they've been working on this for 6 years. So.
Well, I'm still gonna take the credit.
All right, so mayor's update. I would just like to say that we have been working behind the scenes, trying to familiarize ourselves with everything that's going on, but we do have plans that we're going to start implementing very, very soon as far as addressing residents' issues and concerns. We understand that the ditches, are an issue. They create flooding for us, so we're working on addressing that. And we're also working on creating some community events to bring residents together and to create more of a community feel for us here. So we're going to work on that. We'll be putting out a flyer in the next week or so with some upcoming events. And then also, I just want to remind everyone to please go onto our website and fill out the general plan survey. Your feedback on that is very important for us as we plan, and the Sunrise Engineering as they plan for our general plan revisions. So we appreciate that. Let's go to public comments. First, and I know that you had one that you wanted to read.
Yes, I have one that was requested. This is a statement of Jason Graham of 1950 East 2000 South. I wish to comment on item 4 in the agenda packet, but the general message applies to other parts of this meeting. Please know it is the desire of myself, along with many citizens in the town of Apple Valley, that the town council represent us and deny the building permit timeline changes, as well as the grubbing of property standards. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Many have clearly established that it often takes longer than anticipated to build a house. Many homes here in Apple Valley, for no lack
of effort or money have taken longer than 1 year to complete their home. Requiring an extension that leads to a reapplication and a new set of fees is contrary to the freedoms we enjoy here in the United States. If you don't like to look of a home under construction, then buy it or don't look at it. Simple. It is not in the interest of the government to control this process and prevent a citizen from completing their home on their timeline. This is not Denmark or the Soviet Union. This is the United States of America, and property rights are protected under the Fifth Amendment. Please do not try to take away our rights as citizens of the United States and Apple Valley. There are many reasons a property owner might want to clear their own land without a building permit, or rather where a building permit is not even required. I may want to clear the sagebrush and other invasive species from my land to plant dry grass or other species. Or I may want to clear a spot or to park an RV or simply store equipment. Many of you folks from densely populated areas may scoff at that prospect, but you don't own my land. By requiring a building permit to clear vegetation from my own land, you're directly interfering with my right of a quiet enjoyment of my own property. This is not Denmark or the Soviet Union. This is the United States of America, and property rights are protected under the Fifth Amendment. Please do not try to take our rights away as citizens of the United States and Apple Valley.
Thank you. All right, do we have any other public comments? Would you come up, please?
Come up or?
Come up.
Rich Cobb, 2222 East Ranch Road. There has to be some kind of mechanism in place that holds developers, especially road developers, accountable. There has to be a timeline in place. I mean, I can hear all these excuses. Oh, well, you have to get the engineer involved, and oh, it started raining. But when you have simple infrastructure projects that are into 5 months, take the one in front of me. Where is the privacy issue become an issue with the town versus the citizen? There has to be some kind of mechanism in place where, one, there's a timeline so the citizens know, okay, this project should take 2 months, okay? Or this project should take 6 months, or a year and a half. Like, where is the cutoff point? So at least the residents would know who are being put out and have to deal with machinery day after day, and inconvenience, and roads being closed, and roads being washed out because of rain, and roads that we purposely spent money on that just get destroyed. There has to be some accountability by these contractors that, look, you know something? You got 2 months to finish the project. If you can't, well, then you're going to be subject to fines and violations, fines. And if it's not to the contractor, it's going to go right down to the property owner. And then in that case, they might be forced to get a reliable outfit to get the job done. But there is, just like Mr. Graham said, there's protections to citizens. And I think it's the town's duty to make sure, you know, I understand. I was in the trades my whole, 35 years. I know that sometimes there might be hiccups, but still, it may force a contractor to do extra legwork in the beginning and make sure that the job is going to go as planned. And if not, well, you're going to have to deal with the consequences down in the end. If you want to say, look, maybe we can give you a short extension, fine, but still, there has to be some kind of cutoff point where the privacy of the residents out there and the convenience is not just disturbed for a never-ending amount of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? Now, throughout the rest of the meeting, we're not going to be accepting comments from the public. So if you have anything from the agenda tonight that you feel like you might want to comment on, this is your opportunity to do that. So just note that as we move through the rest of the agenda, that we will not be accepting additional comments. Okay. All right, so we will move on to discussion and action. Item number 4. Update of title number 10. So we have asked our planning and zoning manager to assist us through this process this evening, as he did with the planning commission. And he's going to give us brief brief outline for what each of these entails. So if you would please, Mr. Lindhart, start us off.
I'll be happy to. So this is just the beginning of will be a lengthy process of fixing our ordinances. And that's the reason why we have the moratorium, to make sure that we don't have all these conflicting things in our ordinances and things that doesn't make sense, and fix problems. So this is a beginning of some of them. Hopefully we can get it done quick, but the first one I have here is there's a zone that was created here a year, maybe a little bit. It was called tourist commercial. And it really only had, they moved motels, hotels, and cabins and cabin parks over into, and RV parks over into this tourist commercial. But other than that, it's exactly the same as it was in our commercial zones. So, but by what was happened, they put cabins in by themselves into this zone. So that means that there was no guidance, and we have a cabin zone that already says if you want to do a cabin, we don't want to have a million little cabin zones, 5 acres, 2 acres, whatever, these little parks around. So we get nicer, bigger ones. That's why that zone was created a long time ago. By having cabins by themselves inside the zone, all that just goes bye-bye. So it's kind of like a free-for-all. So by taking that, deleting that zone, and I'm suggesting that we put the cabin park zone as being allowed in C2, would be commercial, and the same with the RV park, allowed in C2, or they can do it on their own. They can be standalone at wherever the council feels like they want to do just the park. Doesn't necessarily have to be in a commercial zone, but it's allowed in, and I'm suggesting C2 because that is the one that is designed to be next to the highway. C1 is one that's next to your neighborhoods where people do shopping, strip malls. And C2 is one that's designed to be by the highways and kind of away from everybody. And C3 is one that's all general, pretty a mixing pot of everything. So C2 is the one that's appropriate for to put cabins, parks back in, and RV parks back in, and motels back in, and just simply deleting this tourist commercial zone.
So it keeps it out of the residential areas.
It keeps it, well, it wasn't there to begin with, but yes, it would never be in the residence. And in that cabin park that we have, it specifically says it has to be, cannot be close to residential areas. And it must be close to a highway or other designated areas. And then, so there's a long list of the way it works under each zone. You have what's permitted, what's not permitted. So I simply deleted everything under that and delete that zone and move the ones that was taken out back into C2 and some of them into C3. So you can see those Ps that I moved on pages 20, 21, 22, and 23. And teeny bit on 24. Nothing else has changed. Everything else in that ordinance is exactly as it presently is.
Okay, thank you. So we'll discuss this. Do you have anything else to add?
Not on that one.
All right, so let's have discussion on this, please.
There's a chat message.
That we're not accepting anything till after.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you. See, Margie's not here. She's on track.
Boris is in here.
Thank you. Of course. How did you let me get off track? Thank you. We need a motion to close the public comment section.
I make a motion that we close public comments.
Second?
Second.
vote?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you so much. All right, so discussion on adjusting the commercial zone.
Why did they have that in the first place? Like, why is it different? I mean,
I don't know. The only thing that really happened was that Cabins got his own special spot in this zone without any restrictions. So that's the only thing I can think of, that somebody wanted that, be able to kind of do their own thing that didn't fit within our cabin ordinance as it is already written. Because everything else was just moved, motels, bed and breakfast and out of commercial and into tourist commercial. And then it had, they had the typical stuff that you have in commercials, such as bike shops or rock shops and stuff were put in under tourist commercial, but they're also allowed under regular C2 commercial. So the only one item that I could find that was any different at all was cabins.
Yeah, because it didn't have any guidance
Yeah.
as to the regulation of it.
Right.
Where the tiny cabin ordinance we have now says the 15-acre minimum for the tiny cabins. And then I can't remember what the density is, but there's a specific
10 per
density
acre.
also. Yeah, 10 per acre.
Right.
That's
So
what it is.
we're putting it back into the C2, so there's some control over it.
Yeah, or standalone. It is a separate zone already. The cabin is and RV parks is,
Within the.
they're
boundaries of
already their
commercial.
own zone, so
That's
they
right.
could go wherever the council decide what they should go. But they're also allowed under C2 by doing this. So for example, on Main Street, where we've had that part of that Main Street should be commercial for future. That means they could go there too. They could still go there. But when this was changed, they also changed that whole Main Street, 500 feet in each direction and a mile in each direction to all be tourist commercial. So that needs to be, of course, addressed when we do fix the general plan.
That would be a wrong use to get that.
All right, so some of my thoughts, and again, I come from Virgin, worked, in the tourist industry there for 20 years. And I've seen some of the growing pains there that we have here. We are poised to become a new tourist area.
Blow that up, dear.
And in Virgin, I've thought for a while that we have way too many zones, and that we need to simplify. I would really love to see us simplify things. And so for me, right off the bat, having C1, C2, C3 is not simplifying things. In Virgin, they have commercial zone, and then they do have they called it a resort zone. But essentially, understanding that there were going to be hotels, there were going to be tourist-related businesses, and having an area where tourist-related businesses are not intermingled with other residential or even other businesses like a car lot or something like that. There's some sense to it, because then tourists can move freely within an area to go to restaurants, to go to shops, to go to a laundromat, because they're going to need a laundromat to wash clothes. So there is some reasoning for having a resort type zone. When I look at this, I mean, it's just all over the place. And quite frankly, I would like to table this to, one, get the responses back from our general plan, because we asked some very specific questions
About this.
that would apply to this. How do we see our future? If our residents say overwhelmingly, we really don't want to be a tourist destination, then that might need to be factored into how we work with this. So for me, I want more time. I want more time to get responses back from the residents on what they see as the future for Apple Valley. If the future for Apple Valley is to continue to be a rural community, and then that would, you know, factor into how we structure these zones. Those are just some of my thoughts. I want more time with this, and I want some more time to get some feedback from residents.
Is there a way to simplify this list? you know?
Simplify,
Can I make a suggestion?
yes.
If you want to keep the two a minimum, simply take cabins out of tourist commercial for now. Because we already have that you can do cabins within a park.
Mhm.
But if you leave cabins in there now, everyone on that main street right now, we're gonna be dealing with them coming in and can do hundreds, if not thousands of those cabins by themselves. So if you don't want to delete the ordinance for now, just to move cabins out of tourist commercial.
To, what's your suggestion, to see?
C2.
Okay.
And then we already have a cabin park in there in tourist commercial, but it will be as a park.
Mhm.
So, because that was really that was the main difference. So if we want to leave the tourist commercial, great, but take the standalone cabin out of there.
And we can come back.
And then we can come.
Well-
And we have I worked on 3 years ago on a resort zone. And that was actually from a Virgin. Then I thought was a really good idea. But this here was just a commercial hotspot, moves things around. It wasn't really, it doesn't create a resort zone because it didn't say what you can or can't do, or what's the purpose of it. It just moved cabins in there. So I would suggest you just take that out tonight, and then we can actually just leave it alone for now and then work on a resort, tell the planning commission, to work on a resort zone.
All right, so any other,
Plan commercial, DC, is that been this motion?
so any other
DC
thoughts?
zoning, plan commercial?
I think, in my opinion, it's not gonna hurt us.
We've got it out of there.
We can
Yeah.
go back later.
Come
and
back.
readdress it.
Okay.
After the planning commission has some time with it.
Do you agree with that? We can go ahead and make a motion to remove cabin from the tourist commercial, move it to C2, but then to table any other amendments to this until we get more feedback from the residents on our general plan survey, and then have more time to review this. I think this needs more attention.
Yeah, I agree. It probably does need more attention. Whether right, but it sounds like the consensus is that we want to revamp that whole tourist commercial anyway. So whether we revamp the tourist commercial or we just pull that out, I can see the wisdom in pulling it out though, because it is kind of opening the door for problems, because it's not restricting the cabin in that zone.
Well, and I can tell you this, Virgin is becoming a cabin town. So I don't know that our residents want a cabin community either.
Yeah.
But again, we need feedback. So let's maybe take this in two parts then. Do we have a motion to remove cabins from the tourist commercial zone
And put it in.
and put it into C2?
C2. What's that gonna gain us? Why can we not just eliminate this and worry about tidying this up later?
Eliminating cabins?
No,
Eliminating
whole
the
tourist
tourist
commercial.
zone.
If we just move over to C2, then we have restrictions with it. If we eliminate this and do what Frank has studied to where it was before, and then we can go back and streamline up the commercial sections.
Okay, so.
So we just need to make a motion to just eliminate the tourist commercial zone, period. That's my thoughts.
Well, and the fact is that we're in a moratorium right now, so it's not like we're taking new applications, so we should have time to work on this. If you want to eliminate the tourist commercial and then just go back to rework this whole thing, I mean, we can do it that way as well.
I think that would be my recommendation.
So where does everything from tourist commercial go? Because there are a lot of permitted uses under tourist commercial.
I moved them, so you can see where I marked them over.
You missed a couple, I think.
Okay,
At least I think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm reading it wrong,
Yeah,
but
Which ones?
you did miss a couple.
the cabins are not anywhere on there.
and I don't want cabins in C2 by himself,
Oh, I see. So. it would just
because
be the
cabin
ordinance.
stays in the cabin park only. And then what we allow cabin park in a C2. So cabin park can either be on his own on a parcel of land that you approve that's not zoned commercial, but it's zoned for cabins only. Or it can be done in a C2 zone, so kind of both places.
Oh, it just becomes a permitted use in the C2.
Yeah, it becomes a permitted use in the C2, the cabin, but not the cabin itself
Cabin itself has its own ordinance.
has its own ordinance.
To regulate that.
Yeah,
Okay.
otherwise we just move the same problem over
Yeah.
to C2. Now though,
Yeah, we don't want to do that. We just want to abolish the tourist commercial zone for
So what is
now. Then we will go back and regroup on.
what is the cabin ordinance? What is the title of that? You know what the title of it is?
the number,
Numbers? Yeah.
I don't, not offhand.
Wouldn't it just be number 4 of the 10.10.0?
There's 1028 something, but I don't remember the number itself. It's under since I have a list, I don't have it with me. It's actually, the cabin ordinance is quite extensive, and there was a lot of work put into it, and there's been quite a few changes made throughout the years that I have been involved with, that I've seen. So it requires, like, you have to have a manager, you have to have somebody that lives on site, and you gotta have X amount of bathrooms for cabins that don't have, like we have over here with Aaron's, they have cabins that don't have bathrooms. Then you have to have a certain amount of bathrooms, so, I mean, it's all in there, and they must have a certain amount of space between them, just like we do in any home building or anything else. It's all in there, it's quite well written.
It's 10-10, 110.
Yeah. 110.
10-10, 110. Yeah, that's what it is. So that's what we would be adding to that.
I think it is there on there,
110.
it's in there.
All right, so are we ready to make a motion on this then? Andy, do you want to make a motion?
I make the motion that we eliminate the TC tourist commercial zone from section 10.10.030 Charlie commercial zones, and reassign those that were previously assigned to tourist commercial to C2 and C3 as appropriate. And take the opportunity to streamline our commercial zoning in a later date.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Vote?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay.
All right, that's 5-0, aye. All right, the second item, the accessory building.
This is really just a housekeeping item, because if you read through accessory building, which is 1028-260, and then you read through the next one, 1028-270, 95% of everything in both of them is identical. So what I suggested that we just delete this one and then make a change on the next one, the 1028 guest house or casita. We just add one word, detached. You can see on the second page that I highlighted that,
Yeah, right under the. guest
because the
house.
casita, it's not really a casita. When it's attached to a house, it's just part of a house. So we're talking about in order to make it equal to the accessory building we had there, we just put in the word detached. Or we could delete the other one and keep this one. It doesn't really matter because they're almost identical.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or discussion on this?
No, this one's pretty straightforward.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I will make a motion that we remove 10.28.260 and add the word detached to 10.28.270 for the guest houses and casinos.
Do we have a second? Vote?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, number 3, 10.28.270 change. Oh, we did that. And number 4, 10.28.280, add time restrictions to building.
Yes. This one is, it's rare that you see homes anywhere else than Apple Valley, in Colorado City and Hilldale. That takes a long time. Like we have some in my neighborhood that have been going on for 16, 17 years without finishing their houses. So I think it's
There was some guy out in Gooseberry, took like 8 years.
right.
Not saying any names.
So what happened is that when somebody is just sitting there forever and ever and ever, you're impacting your neighbor's lifestyle, the value of their properties, when things just never finishes. So in the building code itself, it already has what you have. In order to get an occupancy permit, you have to have certain things complete. But the building code itself does not address the outside. So all I did here just simply said, in order to get occupancy, because in my mind, I don't really care if people want to live with OSB floors and no doors and no countertops, no cabinets in their house. I don't see any problem with that because it doesn't affect anyone but them. But when it affects their neighbors on the outside, I think that they should be encouraged to finish their houses. I wrote this one here 3 years ago. So at the time, as you know, I'm a builder, so it took me 90 days to build a house, 3.5 months, and then we were done. So I saw some critique on this one on Facebook, and it was constructive criticism because we don't no longer build home in 90 days. So I make the suggestion that that we go to 24 months. Rather than 12 months, get 24 months to build it, and then you can get a 6 months, 180-day extension.
Is the extension costing?
There's no cost involved with this here.
Okay.
Because this is just really finish your outside. Then you can get occupancy permit if building code allows it. Building code will say, like, it's surprising on the inside. You really don't even have to have a kitchen. You have to have one working bathroom, and you have to have somewhere to cook. That's a microwave, and then that's it. And other than that, you can live with bare everything, as long as the electrical is buttoned up. Other than that, that's how you can live, and I'm fine. Whatever people want to do. So the 1028-280 just put that restriction in for basically 2.5 years. To finish the outside of your house. And then, but the building code, the 1028-290, that is a direct copy out of our building code that Apple Valley City has adopted. Every city, in most cities in the nation and towns operate by the International Building Code, IBC. And this is strictly out of there. This is where all the verbiage comes from. If you don't have an inspection within X amount of time, you pull a permit, but after a 1.5 years and you haven't had any inspections, then we consider your building permit dead. And then it talks about how you can renew it, et cetera, but that's all in the code. I thought I would add it into our code just to bring it to people's attention, but we don't need it in our code. It's already there by adopting the International Building Code. So this is not anything that I made up at all. It took me a long time to find it, but I found it and I thought, let's just put it in the same place that people will look. So it's right in our face, rather than hidden in a big, thick blue book that you can't even find online.
Okay, thank you. All right, discussion on these items. I appreciate, and that's why feedback from residents is important, because receiving that feedback, like you said, constructive criticism, and now you're proposing 24 months for the initial with still a 6-month extension. So
That's
feedback
2.5
from
years,
residents
I
is
think that's enough time.
Yeah, Kevin.
Except for, I will never build another house in Apple Valley. It's a lot of hard work.
I talked to Lance.
That's probably the reason they implemented this immediately, was just because of me.
It is.
Yeah, I agree.
I did talk to Lance, the building inspector, today, and we did talk about that 180 days thing, so, yeah, that's right.
All right, so, I mean, I think this is pretty simple. We're asking that the exterior be completed within 2.5 years,
Yes.
and that is reasonable.
And that is true.
We all,
And
Are
there's
we
no
ready?
cost for the extension.
okay, no cost for the extension. So do we have a motion for this?
I make a motion that we adopt 10, I think, into our code 1028-280 to add time restrictions to building.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
Aye.
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 All right, so that is 5-0. And then we can quickly do 10.28.290. I'm sorry, yes, same page. And that's just simply like Frank was saying, we already adhere to the IBC, and it's just simply putting it in our code so that it's easily seen, easily found by anybody who's searching. So this one's pretty simple too. Do we have a motion?
I move that we adopt or add to our. Sorry. Add to our current books 2-28-290 building permit expiration and renewal to allow it to be more accessible to the public. This.
I think, did you say 2?
10-28-290.
Okay.
Do we have a second? Vote?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, that's 5-0. Item number 6, 10.28.300, add stormwater mitigation. This has obviously been an issue in Apple Valley for quite some time. I'm sure residents are happy to see that this is being addressed. So will you share with us?
Yes. And like you said, this has been a major issue. And the reason why it's been an issue is that developers have been allowed to develop subdivisions like here in Apple Valley proper, where there is no detention. You go to Cedar Point, there's no water detention at all. In every subdivision that I've ever built, and everywhere in all the cities around here, when you develop a subdivision, you have to set a certain amount of land aside for the runoff, and you have to make sure that it actually runs there. And you don't do that through the curbs and gutters and or storm drains. But that's the developer's responsibility. But in Apple Valley for the last 15, 16 years, lots of ordinances and rules have just been pushed by the side. And that's why we have all this debt that we have, is because of, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on mitigating storm problems, runoff problems, and there's still problems everywhere. So what I've done here, and I worked on this one for a long time because it's so unique to us that I'm really good at plagiarizing, but I couldn't find anything to plagiarize. So here it basically says that if you are getting a building permit anywhere in town where you're in a subdivision or in town where there is no storm drain or a drainage system in place, then you must retain the excess water that you create by building your house, putting your driveways in, putting your shop in, whatever it is. And that's simply done by when you submit your building permit, then your engineers provides a little calculation that says the footprint of this is going to produce X amount of gallons. Same thing we do on a subdivision basis. And then you have to dig yourself a nice little hole, fill it full of rocks, and then you have to grade your land so the runoff goes to that. And then it can go from there out to the street. So you're retaining anything excess that you create. So it's a Band-Aid, because if you look here in Apple Valley, there's 2/3 of the lots are already built on, but we're still taking 1/3 of them that now isn't sending all the water down the street into their neighbor's yard. So, and the same with Cedar Point, it's running in the curb there, but it still runs into somebody's lot. So now we're just saying retain your own, and you don't have to have a big old hole. I've done it on a subdivision basis. You dig the hole, you fill it full of large rocks, and then you put a cloth over it, and you put dirt on top of it, or concrete on top of it, whatever you want to landscape. So it looks natural. Then it just does this thing underneath the ground. Once it fills up, then it flows to the street. So it's a fairly simple, and it specifically eliminates, does not have this requirement for a new subdivision that has a place where the water goes.
All right, thank you. Discussion?
I know on Gooseberry, there was one put in by the original developer, but it runs down between the houses on Smithsonian and the houses on Foothill. But it's been there for 20 years. I don't think anybody coming in there realizes there is an easement back there. And part of that is for the bar ditch drain that runs down both those properties. It comes out clear down on Purple Sage, because everybody's built in there and done their own things, and I don't think anybody realizes that's actually there. But I know it's there.
Andy, you just did a house and you added some storm drainage.
Yeah, basically, to mitigate what I was producing on my lot, I ended up putting up a berm between me and my neighbor on the downhill side and made a low spot in there, and then ditched that low spot out to the ditch, the bar ditch along the highway. So it's not real hard to fix most of them. I would think not. I guess my question would be, what does this look like for somebody that's got 10 acres out in the middle of nowhere? I mean, we've got a lot of that opportunity here in our town. You're gonna have to dig a hole.
Well, you look at, like, anytime you do with the building, you look at the individual situations. So if they have 10 acres, they have plenty of places where they can do their runoff. They would still be required to do a calculations, and we also have the opposite. We have properties that has washers going through their property. That's significant. And they're also, they'll be required to do the same thing, that they can't block them, they can't stop them. They got to make sure they continue their natural flow, and that's all covered in this thing here. But yes, you still have to do a calculation, because I can't carve out a whole bunch of what ifs. But like, you have 10 acres. I did the same thing on my property with my 10 acres. I just created blocked it, and then now I dam it, so now it doesn't flood downstream it used to. When it came, all the water ran down, and then it washed our roads away. But now it doesn't do that, because Ross Gregerson, he built a retention pond that he catches a lot of it, and I did it on my property too.
It will just have to be handled piece by piece.
Right.
Well, when we do a building permit, that needs to be on the plan.
That's part of the plan,
Right.
right?
That they have a drainage plan, which that is included.
That's already
in the drainage
included.
Plan,
Right.
whatever that looks like for each individual property. And so the only one thing that I would like to add there, I think, on the number 1, it says, it shall be required as a condition of obtaining a building permit. Said detention area should be accompanied as part of the building process prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. But I think you do need to have in there that it's got to be inspected. make sure that it goes in and gets done the way it was designed by the engineer,
So add in completed and inspected.
completed and inspected.
That's a good idea.
What line item is that on?
Just
Bottom
number
first
one,
one.
it's right up there in the first paragraph.
So there'll
Looks
just
all
be a,
fine and good on paper, but unless somebody inspects it and makes sure that it,
so there'll be a check mark we do when we do CO.
yeah.
It'll be one of those.
Inspection.
Did they do it? Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Janet, have you made a note of that?
I'm gonna get Frank's.
I'll give you my.
Okay.
notes.
Thank you.
All right,
But yes, they'll be in the minutes.
any other thoughts on this one?
No, I'm good with it.
All right, do we have a motion? Barrett, why don't you make the motion since you can.
Oh, boy. I make a motion that we adopt, it's adopting, right? We don't have this in our ordinance.
It's not an existing one.
Adopt section 10.28.300 stormwater mitigation and detention required into our code, and in that first paragraph that we add, shall be completed and inspected, inserting the word inspected before issuance of a occupancy permit.
I second that.
Vote?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
All right, 5 ayes, 0 nays. Number 7, 10.28.310, add grading and grubbing.
This one is rare, but it's happened several times. It's that somebody goes buys a piece of land and then they just took every tree, every shrub on the 5 acres they bought and then did away with it. And now in these particular parcels, they're out by me, but I've seen it other places too, that where they just sit there for now 10 years. With nothing but dirt and sand blowing around. I couldn't figure out the reason why they even wanted to do it, but they did. So obviously it's not a big deal. Some people feel, but this, the way I wrote this is simply, it only deals with vacant lots and land. Actually, it should say lots and land pertaining to a building permit. So it doesn't affect somebody who already live here. It's not talking about somebody that you can't go pull your weeds and
Right.
can't pull a tree.
Because they already have the permit, they're already living.
They already live in there. So this is strictly dealing with a new parcel that somebody wants a permit on. But when this went through planning commission, so I added that second line, soil testing is permitted prior to issue of a building permit. Because that means you got to go big a track hole out, dig a hole, test it, and even for your septic tank, you need test holes. So you can obviously do that. Yeah.
Well, we just had somebody clear a lot in Gooseberry last week. No water, no nothing. It's just sitting there blowing dirt all over the neighbors' houses. So
All right, thank you, Frank. So first of all, grubbing, if you don't know, means removal of trees. And this was, I was looking for anything about grading and grubbing, and whereas I said previously, I really want us to simplify as much as possible. I do think that maybe this is just a smidge too simple. And that we might need to clarify a little bit more. Because you said verbally that, this doesn't apply to, the first thing that occurred to me was, well, I have a vacant lot because I have 2 acres. My house sits up top and then I have a vacant lot down below. And through the years, I've thought to myself, maybe I should go clear that and put in a big garden, and
we don't have the
so.
water for that, I'm sorry.
So initially, my thought was, would this prevent me from doing that? And so I think we need to be more clear about the language that we use here. So that was my initial thought. What other thoughts did you all have?
right, so we would say it does not pertain to, well, how would you word that?
Well,
How would you word that?
online,
I
it
see
has-
you've got a bunch of writing on your page.
I found one that just says, this does not apply to routine landscape maintenance, the removal of dead or diseased trees or shrubs, or the removal of vegetation upon the order of the fire code official for the elimination of a potential fire hazard.
I like that.
I mean, that's one way to
Absolutely.
add some
You should come
clarification.
and help me on a daily basis with all this.
Again, it's, just looking up sometimes.
Right.
So that was one thought that I had, that we do need to clarify this a bit more.
What if we add and noxious weeds? In there with the disease.
That's a good one.
Like,
Yeah, I think,
table it?
my opinion is this, we
Wonder
need
if
to
we should
table
table
this
this so we can get it perfected.
and do some more
But I-
investigation. I have a couple instances that I think that would maybe make it not available for me. Let's say I've got 10 acres out there. I want to raise cows, horses, whatever, on 5 of those acres. I want to grub off a place where I can put in a fence. Do I have to come and get this before I put in a fence line because I want to push up dirt to that point?
So,
You already live there. You already have.
So you-
No, I'm not living there. I've got 10 acres.
so we could add, see, right now it only says prior to issues of building permit. We could also just let that paragraph without discussion with planning commission or however you want to do it. So we open the door for more. But it may be a good idea, send it back to planning commission and add your suggestions to it and let them work through it and then come back.
I think we should have some permitted stuff in there.
Yeah, some permitted, yeah, so I agree.
Some
So
permitted instances already spelled out that we can see are going to come up, so that we don't have to have to go before planning commission every single time. Or there's
Right.
something like that,
Or you can say, what I was gonna say, planning and zoning, but I don't really want.
Yeah, zoning.
Some.
Yeah, so we have a motion to
Yeah,
table.
I make a motion that we table 10-28-310 for grading and grubbing of vacant lots.
And are we tabling and sending it back to planning commission?
Yeah.
Yes,
All right, will you
For
state that
further
again?
refinement.
Like you said.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and send this back to the planning commission for be revitalized.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Vote?
Aye.
Aye.
And if you please give me the verbiage you got, so we can throw that to the planning commission too.
All right, item number 5, update title 11. And we're moving on to number 8, 11.02.020, change scope and add limitation.
Yes, so in state, this is, the whole first part is straight out of state code, is that you cannot subdivide any parcels without coming through your town and or city to get permission. We have a significant problem with this in Apple Valley and have had for years and years. That people will just do their own subdividing. They'll just go down and get it written up and take it down to the county recorder and they will record it. And they will create a new parcel. And then those people will come in and say, hey, I want a building permit. And as a town, we're like, who are you? If you subdivide, you need to take a look at how do you get power? How are you going to get utilities to each parcel that you're subdividing? But all that gets bypassed when people run down and does it by himself. So that's why it says what it says. So what I wanted to add was just right now 11.02.020 just has the scope. But I thought this was the perfect place to just add the number 4, where it says that if you have decided to subdivide by yourself, you may not apply for a building permit, a general plan change, zone change, conditional use permit, if their lot or land has been subdivided in violation of this title, 11.02.20, until such violation has been corrected. It sends them back to make it right, and then we can make sure that they have because they will sell these parcels, and then we have the people coming in, I want, but we haven't had a chance to deal with it. So this make it so they can't just come in and say, hey, come back and please fix it first.
Thank you. Thoughts?
I think
I
that's
think
just
it's
great
good.
transparency.
This one's easy
Boom,
for me.
yeah, it's an easy one for
Because
me.
we do have that issue right over
Yeah.
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of parcels that are.
It's already been done.
So do we have a motion on this or any more discussion?
illegal. Huh? It's already illegal.
All right, do we have a motion?
I will make a motion that we
add 11.02.020 for scope and limitations on subdividing of land.
Do we have a second?
We already have that. We already have the.
Oh, we
11.
do. Oh, we're just adding,
We're
that.
adding
We add
that.
this, okay.
Adding number 4 there.
Change, yeah. So we restate it, please.
And the title.
Yeah, the title.
All right, I make a motion that we add 11.02.020 scope and limitations, add this to the title. Does that make sense?
You're just adding
Add
limitations.
Just adding limitations, okay. Okay, so I make a motion that we add limitations on 11.02.020 and add number 4, no property owner may apply for a building permit, general plan change, zone change, conditional use permit if their lot or land has been subdivided in violation of this title 11.02.020 until such violation has been corrected.
Do we have a second? Vote?
Aye.
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 All right, 5-0. Thank you. All right, number 9, 11.02.040, mayor subdivide restrictions.
This, we're essentially replacing 11.02.040 in our current form with what we have here on page 1, starting there where I put in 11.02.040 to down to 1039.05 on the second page. So what this does, it makes it, and we used to have it for years and years that the mayor couldn't unilaterally go out and subdivide anything more than a lot split. And that's how Hurricane City has theirs too, is that anything other than a lot split, simple lot split, if it already meets all codes, etc., like we just did with the transformer, the land there for that substation. So mayor took care of it by herself. Or if somebody owns 2 acres or 1 acre and the zoning is half acre and they have the proper frontage that they're supposed to, utility is already out there and accessible, then the mayor can do a lot split by herself without going to planning commission and town council. But our current ordinance that was changed a couple of years ago allowed the mayor unilaterally to subdivide up to 10 lots and completely bypassed our subdivision ordinance. Planning commission knew nothing about it. Town council knew nothing about it. No public notices goes out to their neighbors. All of a sudden you got this new subdivision out there that nobody knew anything about. So I suggest that we're more transparent and we clip our dear mayor's wings. It says only a lot split.
Thank you. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I wondered about that when I read it in our code. That's weird.
And Frank, so if you do it on a lot split, like just in Arizona, they'll let you subdivide it for 5.
I'm sorry, we're
All
not
right.
having public.
No,
Yeah, we're not
let's
having
do
I'm
this.
just trying to follow what he's trying to push across right here.
All right, do you have any other thoughts or questions?
No.
Do we have a motion? I'll make this motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that we amend 11.02.040, mayor subdivide restrictions as outlined in our packet. Do we have a second?
Second.
Vote?
Aye.
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 All right, moving on to 11.02.100, add form and attorney fee clause.
Did we ever get a feedback from our attorney?
No, and so,
This should just be a subject to approval
yes, subject to approval.
by our attorney, review by our attorney.
Yeah.
So this is, the first one here, it's the land use change. And the next one is 11.02.120 subdivider agreement. We already have the subdivider agreement in our ordinances. What that says is if you come in for a preliminary plat and you want to subdivide land, if for any reason that you do not follow through, you start building and then you leave a giant mess, then, and we have to sue you to clean it up and make you do it, then the developer pays the legal fees. However, there's a clause in every real estate contract in the state of Utah, and as you know, I am a realtor, that says that if the two parties sues each other, then whoever loses pays both sides. Because what that does is it makes people think twice about suing each other, because if you lose, you pay both sides. So my suggestion is that we add this paragraph to this one here, where it says that in case somebody does sue us under this agreement, not pertaining to their performance, but then they will end up paying both sides if they lose. We of course have the risk of the opposite happening, is that we end up paying their legal fees. So that's something that needs to be considered as well in this. So we adopt this, and we have to be extra careful that we follow every one of our ordinances when we make these. So
we're just adding this to both of those.
yeah, we're creating the first one, 100, that's a land use. So that's if you come for a zoning change. Then you'll be doing the same thing. You're saying, hey, this is, by the way, this is under the laws of the state of Utah, and if we sue it, if you sue us, then loser pays. So I know there's not a real estate contract without it, and there's a reason for that, that it is that it prevents frivolous lawsuits. Right now, if a rich guy sues somebody that's not rich, even though he's and the other guy's not rich, then he can just outspend him, because he doesn't care if he win or lose, and then he may just give up fighting because I don't have the money to fight. And this eliminates that, and that's why that is in every real estate contracts in Utah.
So we don't have anything at all on 11-02-100?
No.
That's a new one.
That's a new one.
Okay.
So I basically copied and pasted and added. And so we're adding the one for zone changes and land use changes, general plan changes, and then we are modifying the one for subdividers. Yep.
All right. My concern is that we do not have a track record of following our ordinances.
Well, we're gonna do it a lot better moving
Well,
forward.
yeah, that is what we're going to do moving forward.
Yes.
And we're going to be consistent in how we apply our ordinances. This is a deep one, huh? It
Yes, it
is.
We definitely want to add that the attorney has to approve it. I don't know the legalities of this.
I do like the idea, though. I mean, it does probably deter people from wasting our time and money.
I can tell you, that's one of the most frequent sentences I hear right now, is that you only have $25,000 legal fees through the league. So, what are you gonna do if we all sue you because we don't get our way? So this is one of the most frequent things I hear from property owners that didn't get their way.
I make the motion that we added approval from the attorney.
We can readdress it after that.
Well,
So Kevin has made a motion. Do we
Well,
have a
let me
motion?
make a real motion. That was just my. Okay, I make a motion on 11.02.100, the land use change, that we add this to our ordinances. And on that note, that it is on approval of the town attorney.
Do we have a second? Do we need more discussion?
probably.
I think so. So, what concerns do you have?
My concerns are if the town doesn't prevail and has to pay legal fees, you know.
Puts the pressure on
Well,
us.
well, first of all, we'll have to pay for our own attorney fees anyway.
Right.
And normally in the lawsuit, you're gonna pay for the other guy's attorney anyhow.
If you
If they
lose,
win their case, you're gonna pay his attorney anyhow.
No, let me just correct that. In the state of Utah, if you do not have a contract that says loser will pay, then each party pay their own
Both
side.
pays their own. Okay.
I spent 10 years with the lawsuit and we spent $2 million and we won. But we got $68,000 in fees from, that's all we could win from them because we didn't have a contract. So that's why these kind of clauses prevents frivolous lawsuits and people saying, ha, 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 I'll outspend you.
I guess we're not really voting on passing this right now. It's on the
It's
attorney.
only on approval by the attorney.
So, yeah, if he's good with it.
So if he
then
says
carry on.
no, then we go back to square
Then
one.
I'm more on board with it at that point. Yes, I am.
Are you seconding that?
I second the motion.
Awesome. Shall we take a vote?
All right, so please restate your motion and about the attorney.
Do I don't think I need to restate it. It's already been,
I don't remember
It's
how
already
you
on the table.
stated it.
okay.
Remake your motion.
Then we're gonna add a new ordinance, 11-02-100, land use change agreement. Only on the approval of the town attorney
Subject to.
or subject to the town attorney. How's that?
Okay.
I second.
And vote.
Aye.
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 All right. No, so we need.
No, we need another one for the second one. This one, we're just adding on the attorney fees and cost governing law. This piece right here,
Yes.
This is the
that's
same.
all we're adding.
This is the same.
We already have this ordinance in place. We're just adding this verbiage on it. Everybody see that where it says attorney fees and costs governing laws?
Yes.
All right, do we have a motion?
Is there any discussion?
It's
It's the same.
pretty much the same as the last one.
I move that we amend 11-02-120 subdividers agreement to include the
Read it out.
attorney fees and cost governing law. Should the subdivider or the town initiate a lawsuit for any reason that the above mentioned reason, the prevailing party shall be entitled to cost and reasonable attorney fees. This agreement shall be governed by and construed in accordance with the laws of the state of Utah, subject to our attorney's approval.
I second it.
Vote.
Aye.
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 All right, number 6. Other. Item number 13, change and add to town design standards for street.
Wait, you missed one, 12. Go to 12. Clarify street improvements.
Oh, thank you. Number 12, 11.08.40.040, clarify street improvements.
So on this one, we have, I gave you, first of all, the first 2 pages is our existing, what it says. Then I gave you what my proposed are on the second one. So if you go on the front page, I purposely eliminated the charts of the streets, just for clarity for now. And also I couldn't figure out how to make them. I'm not smart enough on the computer, but we're not dealing with that. And incidentally, the stuff that I'm proposing that we remove is stuff that we added in 2018, and I was the one that pushed for that. And maybe I should explain for that, because at the time, Apple Valley, if you wanted to buy a lot in Apple Valley, half-acre lot, you could get it in just over $32,000. And an acre lot was just 40, 44, 45. It was teeny money. And as a developer, I recognize that nobody's going to come out in Apple Valley or ever develop anything if they have to put improvements in. So it was an attempt to make it more developer attractive. However, since then, I included the printout from my multiple listing service for you to see. Now things have changed drastically. A half-acre lot is now selling for average in Apple Valley for $90,725,000. A 1 acre lot is selling for $134,000. A 2 acre lot for $162,000. 5 acre lots for $256,000, etc. So we're not talking about chump change anymore. We're not talking about trying to encourage somebody to come in and give us another subdivision in Apple Valley. They can afford it. I also created another little chart specifically pertaining to sidewalks, because there's some controversy whether people want to have sidewalks or not. So I did a chart for you that shows that a half-acre lot, according to our ordinance, must be minimum 80 feet wide. 1 acre, 100, 2.5 acre, 150 feet, 5 acre, 200, and 10 acre, 300 foot wide. With those dimensions, if they were required to put in sidewalk, and I put in $5 cost per square foot, it would cost a half-acre lot, a developer, $2,000 to put sidewalks on a subdivision per lot. And they're selling that lot for $90,725. I think there's room now. There's room for the added safety that it is for children having, when they go visit their neighbors, that they can walk on a sidewalk. And when you want to walk your dog, it's on a sidewalk. Not like it is all over Apple Valley right now. Everybody walks and drives on the street because there's no other choices. So in my book, this is not about urban or rural. This is all about the safety of our citizens, the safety of our family, the safety of our children. And in my book, curb and gutter is just a given, because you've got to fix the water problem we have. So sidewalks is the only thing that you could omit, and we have omitted in every subdivision in Apple Valley that has been approved. So I think it's time that we prioritize the safety of our children, and just prioritize the safety of ourselves when we're out there, and add these things to, and require developers to put in curb and gutter and sidewalk. So we, the citizens, don't end up paying for it later on. The majority of the debt we have in Apple Valley was from when we upgraded the water system in Apple Valley down here, because the developer put in substandard water. We put slurry seals on all these roads because everybody was tired of all the washboard and the dust and the clouds of it. So the citizens that moved in got the council to say, yeah, let's upgrade it. And what I'm suggesting is that and the same thing with the bridge over, we spent $1.5 million because that bridge was just some culverts, and that we kept having trouble with every time there's a big storm. So we make developers from now on pay for the improvements that makes this so we don't have to pay for it and redo it later on. It's just a given. So I'm suggesting that the only place that you do not put in curb, gutter, and sidewalk is if you are in an ag zone. In an ag zone, those are large acreages, and you know, there's long distance between. But in the others, then it's just a standard requirement. And incidentally, it is already required in our design standards. The town adopted design standards and is already in there. So I'm not adding anything that's not already there. I'm just making it so I don't have to have discussions with developers, because they will point to our ordinance right here, and I point to the design standards, and we go back and forth. So we're just unifying, making it also, it says the same thing. So on the first page, all I'm doing there under C, I'm just adding that you'll see in a minute, I'm also suggesting that we add some more design standards. Strangely enough, we don't have a rule road standard. We only have standard roads like you see in a standard subdivision. We don't even have a standard. So I'm proposing that, you'll see that in a minute, that we add those rule standards. So we basically have the same standards as St. George and Hurricane has. So it's all the same. And then apply those in. So that's why I'm adding, and the current one only says A and B, C charts A and B. And my proposal is I'm going to put those charts back in, but we'll have an A and a B and a C. The C will be the rural road design. But I also clarify in here that says that if there is a conflict, because that's what we have now, between these charts and our design standards, then the design standards prevail. On the second page is where down in the bottom, I'm striking out all roads should be constructed as per design standards, and actual road profiles shall be used in the subdivision shall be determined by the town engineer. And then it had all this stuff that except here, except there, except that. I'm removing all those. And the reason why I'm having this, what it says, designed by the town engineer, we see over and over again, a developer will come in with a preliminary plat. And unbeknownst to, especially Little Apple Valley, where we don't have a staff that understands this, on their preliminary plat, they don't have the curb gutter, they don't have the sidewalk. And then the town approves it. And then when it goes to the public works director and say, hey, make sure they follow, then they'll whip out this preliminary plat approval and say, well, we were approved this way. And then it's very difficult to backtrack. So this just says that the type of road, the width of the road is actually going to be designed determined by the town engineer based upon the traffic. So if you have 20 lot subdivision, then you need the narrowest road. If you have one that's 400, you need to have some of them wider because they're collector roads. But rather than rely upon a discussion in the planning or commission meeting and a town council meeting, we can now point back to say our engineer decides on your roads based upon our standards. And then I'm striking out L and M from that page. And I'm saying curb and gutter sidewalks will be required in all zones except in ag zones, where the rural road standard may be applied if recommended by the town engineer and approved by the town council. So ag is the area where you have flexibility with approval from the town council. And then the other zones are basically we have two other zones. We have a single family zone, which doesn't allow any large animals. And we have a rural estate zone, which allows limited large animals. No pigs, but you could have a cow, you could have a horse or two, depending on the size of your lot. But if you really want to have more than that, then people should ask for an ag zone where they can be completely rural. But even in the ag zone, they should still pave the roads, because number one, we the people are the one that ends up paying for the roads. If they get put in with just dirt or road base the way we have, they call and call and call and call. Like we had somebody over on Coyote talk to Barrett, I think it was, to say, my road needs to be fixed now. But if they're all paved, and you got to remember that we the town do not pay for these roads. The developers does. So they're the one that pays for the curb and gutter and the sidewalk. It doesn't come out of anyone's our pocket, but it comes out of our pocket to maintain gravel road. And also, just as important is that we get road funds. A large portion of our money that we get as our town comes from the state, from state road taxes. And we get this much, a small portion when they're dirt roads or gravel roads, and we get a much bigger chunk of money from the state when we have paved roads. And I know from personal experience in me building subdivisions for almost 30 years, it takes about 15 years in one of my subdivision that I still manage, is an association. before we had to do crack seal. And 18 years before we did a slurry seal. And how many times every month do you need to go out with our grader and blade and run a water truck if you want it to stay? So why not let whoever comes in and wants to develop, they pay for it. We're not asking anyone here to change their houses in front of their house. We're not trying to change their lifestyle. This is only for new subdivisions when they come in.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Frank.
Yes.
Is there a area in here for like the Gooseberry subdivision if a developer wanted to come in and just keep it? What I call a more casual look, no curb and gutters, you know, but I wouldn't have a problem if they put down chip and seal or asphalt, but can they, if you like the more open look and you don't have a problem maintaining bar ditches and you have your horses and you want to run along the side path there or your ATV, is that still mandatory in this, or is there some room for a contractor to do something different?
So there's room in an ag zone. They have different standards. So in an ag zone, they're just pavement. And then there's just like here, you got your bar ditches and you got the stuff on the side where people
Like
can
a bike
actually walk.
trail and
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah. But the roads are still paved,
Right.
but it eliminates the sidewalk. And you'll see in your package when we get to the roads next, that we have that road standard that will apply there.
So someone could still come into a section like Gooseberry and apply that agricultural land use there?
So they would just go for a zone change to ag. And then, you know, if you buy an ag, then that means there's going to be large animals. There could be pigs, there could be whatever, horses and whatever people want. But the roads are still paved, but the sides of the road will look similar to what we have here.
All right, thank you. Other discussion? I go back to needing to hear from our residents what kind of community they want. Because I think that historically, our community has been this rural, you know, kind of feel to it. And I hesitate in trying to make us look like St. George or,
I moved up here because I don't want to live in St. George anymore.
yeah, but I know that there has to be something, because again, new subdivisions, no, we've got subdivisions that are being proposed with 150, 250 homes.
268 lots.
268 lots. And so to have a 268 home subdivision where you're going to have children, you're going to have bikes, and you're going to have families out walking for them to not have sidewalk, that doesn't make
Well, I
sense.
think curb and gutter would be appropriate at that point.
Well, but no sidewalks in a
sidewalks,
268 subdivision.
Well, yeah, right.
They, you know, those
Yeah.
families need to have sidewalks.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm really talking about like if we're in an R1 and single family builders and, you know, do they have to put that in even though nobody else does down the street?
Maybe a part that has to conform with the neighboring. If it's like that.
So if you have a subdivision where you have 1 acres and 5 acres and half acres that they're plotted out and, you know, in their regular subdivision, where do we draw the line that, well, this part, it's half acre lots, they should have curb, gutter and sidewalks. Then you get into the 1 acre lot, maybe not so much. And if you have the 5 acres, why would you even want that?
Well, do you really see a subdivision with half, 1 and 5?
No.
No,
Well,
No.
probably not, but
No.
the same. Somebody out there will do it, you can bet on it.
Keep in mind the numbers. We're talking about $2,000 on half acre lots. We're talking about $3,000 on 1 acre lots. We're not talking about, and we're not paying for it. It's the developers that are paying for it.
But see, you're saying developer, but there are a lot of single families that maybe own a 5 acre parcel And now we're gonna tell them that they have to
You have
put
to put in curb and gutter.
a sidewalk along their 5-acre parcel.
It's $7,000 on a 5 acre.
We're in the middle of one of those in Hurricane. So I used to live on this street, 400 South in Hurricane. There's on the east end of it has curb gutter and sidewalk, but the west end of it does not. It was just all asphalt and then gravel. And I lived on that road and my kids had to ride their bikes in the road. And we were on a 1 acre parcel. And there were other people that were next to us that had larger parcels than that. And I really liked the location, but I hated that my kids had to ride in the street to and from school, because we were that close to school. So to me, it is a safety thing, because my youngest daughter almost got hit by a car one day. So I have to, and we're dealing with the city down there, because we're gonna be building a house across the road from that house that I lived in. And the city is requiring us in front of that lot to put curb gutter and sidewalk.
Just on that single lot.
On that one single lot.
Even though all the rest of the house is on that.
Yep, and the empty lot next to it, they're being required to do the same thing because the standard has changed now. So I don't really think that it's too much to ask that we get people that are going to be building and that they contribute to the community, to building the community up. I don't think it's too much to ask. Because I want this community to build up. I don't want it to continue to degrade. Because the asphalt itself, if it's just asphalt, my lot, and I have a curb on the north side of my lot, curbing, and as it rounds the corner, the curbing stops. And then it's just asphalt. And I guess there was supposed to be our borrow ditch, but there never was put one in. And anytime you drive over that edge of the
Chewing it up.
oh yeah, it just crumbles right off. The asphalt is just slowly getting smaller and smaller and smaller right there on that side. So who has to pay for that? Us, the town. So I think that there needs to be an easily maintainable standard that we have set for the town for roads. I don't want to be getting phone calls, hey, I got washboards on my gravel dirt road, come take care of it. That's something that we have to continually maintain as a town. So where the asphalt is a lot better solution for that. Plus it also helps with the water, being able to contain water and get it where it's supposed to be. Instead of puddling up in the road and creating potholes and stuff, it's going places out of the way and being directed right where we want it to go. So.
All right, thank you for that perspective.
Right.
Any other thoughts? So you have done your research and you have determined that, because you have on here that a 10-acre parcel, the frontage, how did you arrive that it's going to be 300 feet for a 10-acre parcel?
Our ordinance.
Okay,
So our ordinance has the minimum frontage required for, you'll notice here in Apple Valley on 1 acre lot, most of them are 80 feet. And that's because that's the minimum requirement. So as a developer, that's what we do. And so an acre lot has to be a minimum 100 feet. And 5 acre, I think, is 150, and a 10 acre is 300 feet. And then they're typically, that's why you see they're deep. When you get more acres, they get deep lots. So you get the width, the 300 feet times 900 feet, and now you got your 10 acre. I'm not good at math, so don't do the math. So and they just subdivided 6 lots out by me, and I couldn't believe it, but I already sold 3 of them for somewhere between $230,000 and $250,000 per lot. And the mayor at the time did not follow through, did not make him follow any of our ordinances. So it's gravel. In fact, it's not even gravel road. They designed their own standards. So they want to use cinders that are mixed in with dirt. That's the improvement for the road there.
That's bad news.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just telling you, that's because we're not following our standards and nobody was watching over it. And so I'm like, okay, so if we have to spend $7,000 more to put sidewalk in on $250,000 that he bought for 50,000, and well, it wasn't even
I don't even
50,000.
think he got it for nothing.
Yeah, he got it for, so
Granted will to him.
the room is there now. But it wasn't 3 years ago. And that's why I'm the one that instigated most of those changes that was there before. Let's not allow it here. Let's not make him put it in there because the money isn't there. But now it's more than there. So they can easily afford it. And keep in mind on the roads and we're the one that pays for it, all of us afterwards. Not just, and the developer just walks away. This is what I do. I'm done with the subdivision. Bye-bye, everybody. And then the cities or towns are left with the maintenance. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't follow our ordinances and make them toe the line and pay for it. And I don't think there's anybody that's gonna drive into Apple Valley and say, well, I wanted to buy here, but by golly, there's a sidewalk. I don't want it. They will still buy it and they'll be more than happy that their kids and their grandkids are safe. No matter what the size is, unless you get into the ag. I concur with when you're in ag, and that's if you want to have a lot of animals, large animals, you should go zone a parcel for ag. And then they're all mingled. But anyway, that's just,
Thank you.
can't keep my mouth shut, sorry.
No, I appreciate all the information because this is an issue and it goes back to the heart of our community.
Mhm.
And the heart of our community has always been this rural and families love having animals but I can see that the future of Apple Valley is going to be these subdivisions and they need to be held to a standard that then does not put a burden on the town in the future.
Remember, it's 1,260 lots that are already been zone changed and or preliminary plat. That we're less than 400 lots in Apple Valley right now, homes in Apple Valley. In the last 18 months, 1,260 is now going to be added. The Apple Valley we thought we moved to, it doesn't exist anymore. Well, it will for a short time. But as soon as all that happens, then it's a new Apple Valley, whether we want it or not.
Thank you.
Council, can I make a comment just because everybody's throwing away that throwing away?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I set up at the beginning, Mr. Hanson, that we're not taking any comments.
Just because everybody's talking about this subdivision, so I do agree with Frank.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so, any other thoughts on this?
When I drive to and from this office, I like seeing kids on the sidewalk over there. It feels better than having them on the road, like I look over there by the mailboxes. It does feel better to have the kids on the sidewalk. But I think there shouldn't be a sidewalk in the middle of a neighborhood with no sidewalks, in front of one house. So I think there should be a stipulation where,
That's weird.
yeah, because that would just look weird.
I can tell you how they do that. That's like Barrett just mentioned. My daughter has bought the lot he was talking about. And I thought I could just go and get a building permit. And then they said, oh, no. It's on this street. And this is a street that we want to have improvements on now. So we actually have to get an engineer to design what portion of that road, how much sidewalk, how much curb, how much new street does she have to pay for? And they make her pay for it up front. So even though they know they're not going to put it in right now, they making her pay, and then the next door neighbor will pay, and then in 2 years, 3 years, whatever, when they got enough in there, then they will put it all in, and then they've already been paid for it. They don't have to go back and try to collect. But that's how they fix it, because like it used to be a rural road, but it's not anymore. And that's how it always works.
So are we talking out in Gooseberry that's been there for a long time? There's no curb and gutter. It's just road base. The next guy that comes in and buys a lot, he's gonna have to put that in.
No, we're talking about subdivisions.
Isn't Gooseberry a subdivision?
No, we're talking about new subdivisions.
Okay.
At this point here, we're not asking you to go and put in curb and gutter and sidewalk. All we're doing is saying if, when a developer comes in, wants to develop, and incidentally,
I'm
I'm
putting in a whole new subdivision.
isn't a new subdivision. I mean, I'm a developer, I would never develop one without curb and gutter and sidewalk, because it helps sell. It makes it a lot more sellable than it would be if I didn't have. But no, but this is not applicable. We don't go backwards. Even though, like we, on the street fair talk about, cities do always go backwards. But that's a separate issue. This, what we're talking about here is new subdivisions.
All right.
All right, so I appreciate that clarification because I think a lot of the residents were concerned that this was going to impact them. And so to have that clarified, and that's that prior to the work on a subdivision, so that's the very first line.
Right.
Okay, all right. So with that in mind, we've heard comments that it's safer for children to have sidewalks. The cost in comparison to what the lots are selling for now is not a lot to ask for. Thank you for that clarification. Are we ready to vote on this? Do we have a motion?
Are we adopting this or are we?
Yeah, you're adopting the changes, all the ones that are highlighted and the stuff that are stricken out. So I purposely did it so you can see exactly what's being deleted and what exactly is being added. The bold stuff is what we're adding. The stuff that's been strike through is being deleted. But like I said, we are adding those charts back in, you know, for the street charts. It's just that I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Oh, before we do this, in K, it talks here about without the necessity of bonding. That utilities and constructing streets can go in without the necessity of bonding.
Correct.
In Virgin, we've got streets and we've got sidewalks and we have no houses.
So what this is referring to, as a developer, there's two ways you can go forward when after your subdivision has been approved, your construction plans are all signed off with everybody, and then you're ready to build. Then you have option A, which is just go build the subdivision, build it all, and then you don't need to bond. Because your final plat will not be recorded, which means you can't start selling until all the improvements are signed off and everything's done. No need for bonding. But if you want to go and start selling lots before you finish the subdivision, then you could do that, but you have to bond for 110% of the cost of the improvements. So if it's $1 million, you're going to put a bond for $1.1 million in place. And that allows you to record the plat, and now you can legally start selling lots. And if the developer for some reason doesn't come through with his development, doesn't finish it, then the town invokes the bond, collects the money, and finishes the subdivision. And I bought a subdivision like that was bonded for. We bought it and we finished it. But those are the two options.
All right, well, if we are taking this opportunity over this time period to tighten up the language, when I read that, my knee-jerk reaction was, why would we let them construct streets and utility systems prior to recording the plat without the necessity of bonding? Is there a way to tighten up that language?
There is actually we have a whole section in our ordinance that deals with bonding, deals with completion and building up your subdivision. So this here is just, for some reason, that's in here where we're really only talking about streets. So we could strike K completely out of it without making any difference to this.
I would like to strike K because again, one of the things we have with our ordinances right now is that we have a statement here.
Right.
And then we have a statement here.
Yep, good point.
So we're going to strike K altogether.
Yeah, we have several sections that pencils out exactly what you need to do. to complete your subdivision. It doesn't have the verbiage of the bonding and stuff that you need to use.
Are you does anybody not want to strike K? I would rather just not have it there and have it addressed where it's supposed to.
I agree with you because it conflicts. Didn't even pay attention to K because it didn't deal with streets.
Mhm. Okay. All right, so now are we ready to have a motion on this?
Yeah, who wants to tackle the motion? That's gonna be a good one.
I make a motion that we, in order to clarify street improvements on 11.08.40, that we adopt the changes and eliminate item K.
Part of exhibit A and B also. Or actually,
We're gonna be.
Robin, spell,
A, B, and C.
read that out. Yeah, read that out actually on exhibit A and B. The part that's being removed.
On C, okay. All streets within the town shall be improved in accordance with the design standards, rules and regulations adopted by the town council. Examples of such plans and profiles shall include, but are not limited to exhibit A, B, and C. See town subdivision design standards for all standards. The design standards shall prevail if any of the example in exhibit A, B, and C conflicts with the design standards.
Then I would go in there and strike out
Yes.
K. And then you got the comments in between and after exhibit A and B. Start with the minor, major, and aerial streets. Will be taken out. And then you go to the next page, table 1 with special permission from the council and then L and M. Does that make sense? Sorry.
I think so, no, so,
Okay.
and then comments in between and after exhibits A and B. All roads shall be constructed as per the town design standards, and the actual road profiles to be used in a subdivision shall be determined by the town engineer. And then strike out minor, major, and arterial streets shall be paved as per Apple Valley Town Design Standards and shall be built as outlined in it. And as per exhibit A, table 1 above, okay. And then strike out under curb, gutter, and sidewalk shall be required in all zones except in agricultural zones where the rural road standards may be applied if recommended by the town engineer and approved by the town council.
For striking out with special permission.
Striking out with special permission from the council, they may be exempt as may be required instead of borrow ditches as required by the town council, and strike out L and M.
Do we have a
as they
second?
read.
Did we cover everything? I think so.
Yes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Vote?
Aye.
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 All right. Now, 13, change and add to town design standards for street designs.
This is the section I talked about, which was a surprise to me as I was reviewing each street standard, comparing it to what we had and comparing to what we had. I plagiarized from Hurricane City. And if you read through these, you'll actually see that some of these mention St. George City. So they obviously plagiarized from St. George City. On the front page, the first one, those first 4 is what we don't have in Apple Valley. We don't have any rural roads standards. We only have all the other ones. Well, most of the other ones. So the main thing we're doing here is we're adopting a whole new set of them, and this is the set. But this set primarily includes 4 new or 5 new rural residential road sections. 4, 5, 6, 7 new standards for. But the engineer, our engineer will decide which one applies based upon the traffic that's being added into a subdivision or from a subdivision.
All right, so where would the rural roads be approved?
In ag zones, there, so when people have an ag zone, then this is where, but it still requires your permission. So it's not an automatic that you can just go do, because we may want to have 2-acre ags, or where you may decide, hey, and that's, we should have curb and gutter side. So it's open for it, but it's left to between the engineer and the town council to decide.
Now, it talks about pavement section shall consist of 2.5 inch of asphalt over 6 inch over road base minimum.
We actually have, in our design standards, is whole great big sections that talks about thicknesses, all depending on the type of road they are. They have to be thicker road base. There's different designs for different roads. In the neighborhood subdivision, it's thinner. But if you are on a heavy road with heavy traffic, then it's thicker. From my recollection, I think it's an inch difference, but some of these smarter guys than me can correct me there. As engineers. So we're just basically adopting this, and we're getting rid of our old ones.
All right, so what discussion do we have?
I've looked these over, I think there's.
Yeah, I've looked them over too. I'm good with moving forward with just a motion.
Okay, no other discussion? Are we ready for a motion?
Makes it pretty clear. Picture says 1,000 words. I like it.
All right, so do we have a motion for this?
I'll do that. So I make a motion that we adopt these road standards. How do I identify them? Because they're all
The Hurricane City standards.
Hurricane City standards
Right.
of the rural roads and the residential rural roads.
All right, do we have
Second.
a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, number 14, changes to street master plan.
The first thing that I think I mentioned it before, but we definitely need to make sure that our online maps, general plan and online master road plans becomes more visible. So whoever is in charge of our website needs to fix that, because it's kind of hidden right now. Makes it difficult to find, and they create some problems for us. This here, there's 2 areas where I'm proposing some changes to. And as you know, we're already in the process of working with the engineers to upgrade our master road plan, our general plan, and the master road plan is part of that.
And the water.
So if you look on the one that's called Bubbling Wells area, and then you'll see the original. So what I'm proposing there, and it's only for one reason only, there's about almost 1,000 acres in the Bubbling Wells area. And right at the present time, we only have one road in. We have a little side road that crosses BLM land, but it's not a legal road and probably never will be. But there's only one place where you don't have to build $1 million bridge. And that's straight down the middle here where it tie into the highway. That's the only place out of Bubbling Wells because we already got subdivisions to the left of it. And then we have the bigger buildings there, and then we're over by Cedar Point. So this is the only place that works on the Bubbling Well side. On the other side of the street, it could go multitude of places. But on that side, that's the only place. And a road master plan is not that this will absolutely for certain be this location. But it is kind of, we mark our spot. Because if the town, that's the purposes of a master road plan is, the town says, in order for us to be able to build our town out, then we have to have certain collector roads that make so traffic will flow in the future when we're not just a few hundred people here. And so you identify the spot. So that means if a developer comes and said, hey, I want to do a subdivision in this area, then they'll say, well, this is the area where these left turn, right lane turns needs to be. Yes.
I just have a quick question, sorry to interrupt, Frank. So, but what we need to do, if we approve all this, we need to get this down to Sunrise Engineering.
Yes.
ASAP.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we need to add that to them. So, but if no developer ever comes and says, hey, I want to develop in Bubbling Wells or south of Bubbling Wells, then this doesn't get built. Unless we're lucky, like we did on Main Street, where the county came in and said, hey, we'll pay for it. But that's not likely to happen anywhere else in Apple Valley. So all we're doing is marking a spot. And I've heard people complain, well, I don't want it right by my property. Well, if you just look at what just happened on Main Street, you could have bought Heber Allred's property for $12,000-15,000. And now he's selling it for $2.5 million because the left turn, right turn lane got put in. And now it's more attractive because this is where the development can go. Normally a developer would have to pay for all these left turn, right turn lanes, but there was gifted to them in order to be able to get in and out of a subdivision. And that's what we're saying here. We're simply marking the spot where if it's going to go in, this is the place. Yes.
So Frank, real quick, are these gonna follow lot lines? We're not gonna run through the middle of somebody's backyard, right?
Correct. Right now in Bubbling Wells area, there is a easement, a 50-foot easement along every section line. So the line that comes straight down there from the top to the bottom, that is section line. The only thing you can't come in on a 40-degree angle on the highway. So just like we did on Main Street, they swooped it in, and so it come in at a 90-degree angle to it. So it'll be the last section, but I've looked.
They're losing a little corner of the property, basically.
Straight down, well, depending on how they design that when that time comes. But on the bottom pieces where that affected, that's one property owner. It's the same property owner.
Oh, okay.
And he
So
is,
if he wants to develop, that's where his road's probably going to be.
yeah, if he wants to develop, but then in the way I look at things is if he wants to develop and he's going to be required to put left turn, right turn lanes in, then whoever comes in after him don't just get to piggyback for free.
Right, they have.
Then we
Piggyback
refund,
portion.
we get them to pay for some of these expenses because that's only right. So we're just marking the spot is all we're doing right now.
So I got another question. So.
Yes.
I'm looking at this Bubbling Wells
Right.
map. Property owners that are currently living on that acreage, how is this map, how is this road, proposed road, gonna affect their property when it is implemented?
You're talking about
Is he giving up easement on his side of the fence, or is it going all on the other guy's?
well,
50,
fifth.
basically?
The easements in Bubbling Wells comes from some CCNRs that was recorded years ago. And the CCNR says there is a 50-foot easement along every section line. Okay,
Of all the properties.
it doesn't say half on 25, half on the one side of the section line, half on the other side. It just says 50 foot along every section line. So you could interpret it as 100 foot, 50 foot from this guy and 50 from the other. Of course, we don't have any road standards that are 100 foot wide, and we never would have in a neighborhood. So
It would be split in half.
I mean, typically what you do is, yeah, so you'd say, hey, that this property owner, he will
He's paying for his
half,
25.
and the other the property owner does the other half. So if both property owners wanted to subdivide, then they have to pay for the first 25 feet on each side along those roads themselves in order to subdivide. But for example, if there's a property owner, like we have somebody that we know that lives in there, he's not losing anything that he didn't already know because it was in his CCNRs. That 50-foot easement for roads and the utilities and stuff were there when he bought it. And that's the same thing. I had to deed it on my property. I deed it to the town. They required me to do 25 feet, and that's what I deeded to them.
So what do you do for the folks that have 20 acres of rural acreage on one side of this road? The next door neighbor wants to develop. What is the 20 acre guy stuck with during this?
Well, nothing, you'd only do
None.
one side.
You only do one side.
You only do the one
That's
side.
why it's 25 feet, because 25 feet gives you 2 travel lanes, so you can have a functional road with just the one guy developing. But we have a unique situation right here because to the right of that line going up and down is BLM. They're not going to go contribute. So we may end up with only having a 50-foot road there because that's the only easement that there is on that one side. But then we'll just have to make do. But that's unique to Bubbling Wells area.
So you're not normally gonna see that probably anywhere else in the town. It's just that particular parcel.
Yeah, well,
It
normally
could happen
the
more
town
than
doesn't
one
have
time.
easements.
Right.
They don't have easements all over every section line like we do out there. They've already put in place before all of us buy, and some people one of my neighboring property was for sale and the buyer didn't buy it because there was an easement that ran through his property that he didn't like it. But it was there and he wanted, can I get rid of it? Yeah. You can hire a lawyer and they can do their magic and the judge can make it happen. But other than that, you can't. They're there. They've been there for 20+ years.
72.
All right, so do you want to, also, since you're talking about this, go to the Wildcat area?
Yes, the Wildcat area, the only thing we're doing there is that intersection has already been put in. So we're just putting it in on the map based on what Mr. Foray already put in.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I thought it's just a reminder for the engineers to make sure they put this one
Make sure
into.
it gets added onto the map.
Right.
Thank you, thank you. Do you have any other questions for Frank? All right, so obviously Wildcat, that's easy, that's just updating the Sunrise Engineering with our roadmap. With Bubbling Wells, any discussion?
I like that I like that it cleans up where everything's tying into SR 59.
Are we getting sidewalks there?
Yeah. Yeah, for you.
Any other thoughts?
My only concern is that we're not affecting somebody that's already out there with 20 acres ag land,
Yeah, no,
messing with his
I-
property.
I mentioned this, there's really only a couple of 2 or 3 property owners that are, but they all know the easements are there. But the ones I've talked to have not objected to this. Well, that's not true. I've talked to Jason, and he objects to all of it. But other than that, the other property owners knew they had the easement, and we all were hoping someday that somebody will come in and put in, somebody with money, I'm not pointing at anybody, will come in and put in left turn, right turn lanes. Because you take your life in your hands for you and your family every time you try to turn left off that highway at 85 miles an hour, people cruising. So I'm hoping and praying that somebody will come in and put those left turn, right turn lanes. So we don't have to have, every year we have accidents there at Bubbling Well, every year, and some of them deadly. I've seen people life lighted out of there because there is no left turn, right turn lanes. So I'm hoping that this will happen, but we recognize it only comes if somebody wants to develop the property.
All right, do we have a motion on this?
I make a motion that we adopt these changes to Bubbling Wells roadmap and Wildcat,
For the master
the master street plan, yeah.
I second that.
vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Item number 15, adopt development and building policy.
This is really, there's nothing in here that is not already in either in fire code, building code. But it's again, it's a heads up for people that are gonna develop in here. So it talks about road access, that we will not allow people to come in and develop in this end of town any more subdivisions until we have another way in and out, which we don't have right now. We have just one way in. And unless that, you know, they can do a traffic study. This is the way how it always works. They can do a traffic study and prove to the town that they don't need to, that they can, that one is not needed, a second access, which they won't be able to. So that's one part of it. And the same thing across the street. It's got to be a left turn, right turn lane if they want to develop it, but they're coming. Jefferson Canyon will be the one, and we already got the other one over there. I'm just putting it, developers that notice here as well, that they got to follow our master plan roads, because we ran into this problem. They say, well, we didn't know there was master plan roads. Of course, their engineers has to know. I understand an inexperienced developer may very well not know. So I'm just, this will be a handout I can give. This is the policies we have in this town. Please follow. Road improvements. This is the one I talked about, that